We have waited a long time for this. We've waited 2 years to see some brackets as last year's NCAA tournament was cut short due to COVID-19. And I'm not saying things are back to normal yet because they're not, but boy, does seeing a bracket and the selection show feel a little bit closer to normal. I'm John Miller. He is Marc Morehouse. He is Marc Morehouse, that direction. And we are set to talk some brackets. I'm stoked, Marc.
Yeah, you've been talking about this since we got off air after the Illinois game yesterday. And tonight's going to be a little different. Usually I'm reporter guy and John's doing the broadcasting. So you guys are going to have to bear with me. I'm usually not the host. And John is the broadcaster here. I'm the sports writer. But he is geeked on so much here that I'm just going to kind of throw some stuff out. I'm going to throw some raw meat out there and let the I tweeted this last night. I was watching an FCS football game last night, Northwestern State of all teams against Southeast Louisiana, and the announcers on these things are worth their weight in gold. They're fantastic. They're hilarious. They're real. And at the end of last night, the Mighty Lions aren't going to sleep here tonight. Went into the jungle song. I'm throwing that raw meat to you. It's time for you to geek out. And first place I'm going to go. Okay, Hawkeyes, number 2 in the West. Everybody knows who and what. Tell us about Grand Canyon State. Am I getting that? I'm sorry if I get that wrong.
Well, State, I don't want to hear anything to do with State and Iowa and the NCAA tournament, but I think it's just Grand Canyon.
Grand Canyon University, I believe.
Yes, Grand Canyon University. This is their first ever trip to the NCAA tournament. First time.
I thought they were going to be a football team before they were a basketball team, but here we are.
Yeah, here we are. This is a team for those of you that are watching this. Thank you for those of you that are watching the video live. By the way, do us a favor. Go out and retweet what I retweeted, or go tell your friends that we're going live and they don't want to miss this. I appreciate it. Grand Canyon doesn't really do a number of things excellently, with the exception, and somehow relative to competition, play defense. Their defense overall from Ken Palm, their defensive efficiency number is 74th in the country. But they are 6th in effective field goal percentage defense, and they're 15th in offensive rebound percentage. That means that their offensive rebound percentage number is 22.6. That means they rebound 22.6% of every shot they miss, nearly 1 in 4. And that's why they're 15th in the country in that statistic. And why are they that highly rated in that statistic? Because they are a rarity among mid-major conference teams. They, coming from the Western Athletic Conference, they start 2 centers. They start a 6'10" guy in Midgard, and then a 7-footer in Lever. Midgard, a grad transfer from Wichita State, and Lever is a senior. Both of these guys very experienced, and these are their 2 leading scorers. 2 centers are their 2 leading scorers. Midgard averages about 15 points a game and 9 rebounds a game. Lever's 13.5 points a game and 5.4 rebounds per game. And they are a very streaky shooting three-point team. They're not horrible from 3. They're not exactly great from 3. This year they attempted 473s. And you're saying, John, why? How does that number have any relevance? Well, it has relevance when you say they shot 470. Iowa shot 733. And I think Iowa maybe only played a couple more games than did Grand Canyon. They are 7th in the country in block percentage. They are one of the best shot blocking teams. Hey, when you got 2 big trees in the lineup, 2 centers, and you're playing in a mid-major conference, that's probably going to do that. But they're not a team, Marc. They're not that team that scares me relative to what I didn't want Iowa to see in the first round. And that's a team that is a 4-guard oriented team, and guys that can pressure you when you get across the half court and really get up in the grill of Iowa's guards. That's what I wanted to see Iowa avoid for as long as possible. They are avoiding that in the first half. Their the first round, rather. Their third leading scorer is Mikey Dixon. He is 5 feet. I'm sorry, Jordan Blackshear, number 10. You can go. I watched about 20 minutes of their game, their championship game of the WAC against New Mexico State. You can Google that and find it and watch it like I did. Blackshear averages 11.9 points per game. He shoots 39.2% from three, and relative to the number of three-pointers attempts he's had this year, very similar to that of how many Joe Wieskamp has attempted. So, but they are streaky from beyond the arc. They're 277th out of 354 teams in the country in bench minutes, which means they don't necessarily have the deepest bench or a deep bench with lots of talent. Doesn't mean they don't have guys on the bench. They just don't rely on their bench all that much. So big size. Would be nice to have a Jack Nunge for this game. Midgart, one of their centers, is the nation's leader in field goal percentage. Wouldn't surprise me to see Iowa mix up their defenses a little bit. You don't want to sit here and say you got to play zone against a team from the WAC, but when you have a team like Grand Canyon that isn't great from 3-point range, and they're a streaky team, and they've got two guys that are over 6 feet 10 inches tall, and they want to run their offense through those guys, you might mix that in every now and then. 142nd in the country in offensive efficiency per Pomeroy, 74th in the country in defensive efficiency per Pomeroy. Pomeroy's overall ranking 108th. ESPN's BPI was 74th, net of 106, and they played the 255th ranked strength of schedule out of 354 teams. And Mark, they are the Antelopes.
I was going to say, you got to the last part. Who have they played? Who have they beaten? What's the most impressive trophy on their wall? Fish on their wall, which I literally have right there.
Fish, they are 17-6 on the year, so 23. So Iowa played probably about 5 or 6 more games than they did. Their best win relative to Pomeroy's rankings was against Steve Alford's Nevada Wolfpack back on December 11th, and Nevada's ranked 87th in Ken Pom. They only played 2 teams that were ranked in the top 100 of Ken Pomeroy's rankings, the aforementioned Nevada Wolfpack, and they lost a game to Colorado on December 22nd. Colorado ranked 17th in Pomeroy's rankings. They lost that one 74-64, a neutral site game. But since then, the highest ranked team they've played since that Colorado game on December 22nd is New Mexico State, who they've beaten 3 times since then. And New Mexico State was 160th. They beat Tarleton State twice. That's 266th. Bethesda, who's not Division I. Dixie State, 331st. They swept them. They split a game with they split a series with Cal Baptist. Cal Baptist is ranked 243rd. They split a series with Seattle. Seattle's ranked 231st. And then they split a series with Utah State and Utah Valley, rather, not Utah State, Utah Valley. And Utah Valley is 211th. So they've really not beaten anyone. They've really not played anyone consistently. They are just a team that has a couple of big centers, a rarity in mid-major conference play, and they've been able to capitalize on that.
I want a helmet. I want a mini helmet from every team in the new WAC. Yeah, that is. I thought you remember the old WAC. This new WAC is wow.
It's WAC. The new WAC's WAC. The old WAC, we at least had some familiarity, with the old WAC.
Yes, I mean they were before they were. They were actual Division I teams. These are new Division I teams, and ones that we're just not used to even considering.
Yeah, I mean, you got 300. You've got 354 of them, and there were some names in there that I'd never heard of before. I'm going to do this for 1 second. It's going to take me 3 seconds.
No, that's cool.
I'm going to shut my door because my dog is barking at itself in the reflection.
And that's this is a rain delay. I'm going to talk you through the rain delay. John's back. Thank you.
Boy, Mark, you got to have a few little filler things right there, little anecdotes and jokes.
I almost grabbed a guitar, which has a broken string, the one behind me anyway.
Yeah.
So I was going to save this one for later.
Okay.
But let's just jump. We're hot talking about Iowa. By the way, people are asking when the game is. Saturday?
Yes. The game is Saturday.
I think all everybody in that bracket is Saturday, right?
Yes, correct. That is correct.
Where is Iowa's location? I saw it, but I'm blanking on it.
I haven't seen it yet, so if somebody has seen it officially, let me know. I've had my head in a notepad for the last 2.5 hours. I knew they were going to announce the times and the venues, I believe, tonight, but I'm not sure if they've done that yet.
Okay, I was gonna. Everybody remembers.
One quick thing, Mark.
Go ahead.
Since I mentioned venue, one weird thing that I have seen is that the teams that win their opening games will not play at the same venue in this next round. That seems really weird to me.
Odd, but I kind of like it. I think maybe creates unnecessary. It makes the director of basketball operations job that much worse.
I guess they're probably thinking that they don't want to give one team an advantage because maybe both of those teams won't play in the same venue the first game, and then the next game they don't want one team to have familiarity with the venue. But honestly, now I'm kind of hoping Iowa plays in the Dome, because none of these other teams have played in that cavernous dome. Maybe the second round, if Iowa wins the first round game, either against VCU or Oregon, get them in that dome, and those other two teams hopefully haven't played there yet. Maybe a little bit of an advantage. So,
Ken kicking things off with the dog loves Drake.
The dog loves Drake.
I'm a little pissy about the Drake matchup, John. I get some of the nostalgia with the old MVC matchup, but I hate it when I would love to have seen Drake opposite of Power 5. I like that measure better for, you can make an argument what Wichita State is or isn't, but
right.
I was hoping for better for Drake, but I'm glad to see them then. But
yeah,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
It could have been Drake against Michigan State. Could have been Drake against UCLA. Could have been Drake against some other teams. I get what you're saying.
I was going to say that everybody knows the meme from Always Sunny in Philadelphia with Charlie putting together the conspiracy. I wanted John to run the numbers on Iowa making the Final Four. I think it's a fairly clear path, but I don't think it's. I want to see what you've been able to pull out. What you've been able to. Actually, did I jump too far ahead?
No, you're fine. So final 8 odds. This is from the Action Network, and I've also seen a few other gambling-related websites come out with information like this, Mark. And when you see the numbers from the gambling sites, we can have all the AP poll conversations we want to have, but you should consider placing more value in what the odds makers put on these teams. Doesn't mean they're going to be right. They're just paid to know more about the nuances of these teams than our AP writers who have other jobs to do. So right now, at least from the Action Network, Iowa has the 4th best odds of making the Final Four of anyone in the field. But the problem is Gonzaga has the highest odds of making the Final Four, and the Hawkeyes are unfortunately in Gonzaga's region. And the reason why Iowa is in Gonzaga's region, I'm going to close that down, maybe get a little larger screen here. And the reason why that is because Ohio State jumped over Iowa in the final season.
That was one question from fans. It looks like, and maybe if Iowa plays in the final, I don't know how that would have worked out if Iowa would have lost to Ohio State. But it looks like Ohio State won some people over this weekend.
Yeah, it does. It does look like that. I don't know if that full screen actually helped or hurt, so I'm going to keep it off. But Ohio State is the 6th. The problem this year, normally in a normal year where there weren't 2 Big Ten number 1 seeds, this is an abnormal year. Iowa wouldn't be playing in Gonzaga's bracket. The 8th seed, the 8th overall seed would have. Houston would be in Gonzaga's bracket. But Ohio State can't be in Illinois or Michigan's bracket, and Iowa can't be in Illinois or Michigan's bracket. Ohio State had a higher ranking than Iowa, so that's why Iowa goes to Gonzaga's bracket and Ohio State goes to Baylor's bracket. That's the reason why. And then looking at this, Robin Schuster said, I love that Iowa is the only Big Ten team in our region. Yeah, There's some interesting things with this region too, Mark.
That's a good observation by Robin. I appreciate that. I'm glad you broke that down because the Big Ten having 2 number 1 seeds obviously affected where Iowa went.
Totally did. This is not a normal year, and it is what it is. Kansas is the lowest rated 3 seed. The top, 8. Houston's the lowest rated 2. Kansas is the lowest rated 3. Kansas is leaving for Indianapolis without 3 players, including their second leading scorer, who could make the trip if he clears COVID protocols by the time this weekend's games happen. But that is something that, of course, we'll continue to monitor.
One quick aside, John. One quick aside. You live in Kansas City, Missouri, or Kansas?
I live in Leawood, Kansas, so I'm about 0.7 of a mile from the state line, but I'm in the Kansas City metro.
So you live in the state of Kansas. Are you allowed to make Bill Self toupee jokes?
I'm going to push the boundary on that. But you know what? I used to do that. But given what's under my lid right now, I don't think I have any sway to make a toupee joke.
We actually talked about this before. I'm big time trying to talk John into just Vic Mackey and that thing right off and just enjoying the bald head. He's in the right mind space, people. I think he understands that he's not going to have hair to cover something up. There's no comb over. There's no toupee. There's no Bosleys coming.
No, that's not happening. I've looked into all those things, but I'm not going to do it. While I have this thing up, Mark, look at the Loyola seeding. Loyola is 30th in the overall seed list.
Yes.
And they were top 10 in both the net rankings and Ken Pomeroy's rankings. And yet they're seeded 30th, and they're a 9 seed sitting there to play Illinois. We'll come back and talk about those things later. But to follow up on what you talked about just a few minutes ago, here are the final 4 odds from the Action Network. Or actually, is that Final Four? Or
so we're getting Iowa. Yeah. We're getting Iowa to the. We're delivering on our promise of getting Iowa to the Final Four right now.
Yeah, getting Iowa to the Final Four.
Once this comes out of our mouth, people, book it. Bet it all.
That's right. Except don't book the hotel reservations and come back and get mad at me, as some of you've done in past bowl trips.
I almost did that one year, John, and I know you told me about those headaches, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
I got plenty to do.
Those were headaches. So I misspoke earlier. I had these mismarked. Iowa has the 3rd best odds of making it to the Elite 8. That's better odds than Michigan, who's a 1, and Baylor, who's a 1. And then they have the outside of the 1 seeds, the best odds of the Final Four. Fortunately, again, they've got Gonzaga sitting in their bracket. And this image here comes from Bart Torvik. Bart Torvik is a lot like Ken Pomeroy. It's sortable. I really like what he does. His site is the site that has allowed me to go back and look at what Iowa's national defensive efficiency ranking has been since they played Ohio State back on February the 4th, and it's top 10. This is, you can see the odds here for Iowa making it to the Sweet 16. He has it at nearly 70%, Elite 8, 48.2%. So anyhow, a lot of numbers.
So you see, the big test, obviously, I mean, we talked about Grand Canyon. Let's talk a little bit about the next round. I think a lot of people have focused on Oregon.
Yes.
And the question, as soon as I tweeted, and I get it, as soon as I tweeted that, I believe that's a favorable drawing for Iowa. I believe that's a probably as good as it's going to get. You're going to have to jump over some hoops to get to the Final Four, the Sweet 16, obviously. It looks like Oregon is the tougher matchup that comes out of Oregon and VCU. VCU.
Yep.
They're both purple. That threw me off. Oregon makes people nervous because they sort of shape shift with some guys getting back. Talk about Oregon for people. I don't want to assume. I mean, Oregon obviously has to beat Virginia Commonwealth, but
yes.
Let's assume that and tell people, talk people off the ledge or on the ledge about the Ducks.
Yeah,
Dana Altman is, everybody kind of knows him a little bit,
right? And we're just making projections and conversations. And those of you that are superstitious, I feel sorry for you. Nothing what we say here has any bearing whatsoever on the outcome of any game Iowa may or may not play. And obviously we just talked about Grand Canyon. Are we looking past them? Maybe, but I don't play, so it doesn't matter. Oregon, 14-4 this season, 20-6 overall. They were the regular season champions of the Pac-12, but then they lost to Oregon State along the road.
Watched that game last night, and I was not impressed with Oregon State.
Yeah, and Oregon State.
I could see rivalry stuff being weird.
Right. Oregon State's beaten them this year 2 out of 3 times. But Oregon is a team that has dealt with injuries this year and has dealt with at least one COVID restart, if not 2. And they came into that Pac-12 tournament having won 10 of their previous 11 games, and they won 11 of 12. They beat Arizona State to start with, and then they lost to Oregon State. So they are a healthier team. And probably playing some of their best basketball of the year right now. But this is not a very big basketball team.
6'6", right?
Yeah, 6'6", 6'7", in that range. But they live on the wings. Their best scorer, one of their best scorers, their leading scorer is Eugene Omori. Let's call him Eugene O, just for the sake of pronunciation. Averages 16-7 a game, 5.2 rebounds per game. Think of James Winters from seasons past, just a built guy like that could rebound really well. And then their co-leading scorer, also averaging 16.7 points per game, is a guard, Chris Duarte, also 6'6". So they got a lot of 6'6", 6'5", 6'4" guys. They get out there. And they like to run. They are the 16th rated offensive efficiency team in the sport. However, they don't push the tempo and pace the way Iowa does, as evidenced by their average possession length, only ranking 181st in the country. Defensive efficiency, 76. So when you look at their defensive efficiency lineup, 16th offense, 76 defense, it's very reminiscent of Ohio State, except they don't quite have the caliber of athlete that Ohio State does, start man 1 through 7. They just don't, which is good news. They were 36th in Ken Pomeroy's final rankings. Notable victories out of conference, notable games out of conference. Most of their games were conference games this year. These were the first 2 games they played all season long. They lost to Missouri on a neutral court, and Missouri was 51st in Pomeroy, and they beat Seton Hall, who was 52nd. But since then, it's all been in conference. They had a win over 43rd Arizona, 17th Colorado. They split with Colorado. They lost to USC. They got hammered by USC. And USC is kind of a one-man team, and really, in my opinion. So this is a very salty team. Their defensive fingerprints, 174th in the nation of effective field goal percentage defense. It means that they're not that great of a defensive team, again, as evidenced by their 76th ranking. I realize that Iowa's around 50th, and we're all really excited about that, but it is what it is. Offensive rebounding percentage, it's not great. They're decent shooting team relative to effective field goal. They're a good 3-point shooting team, 19th in the country at 37.9%. But they don't really do too many things at an elite level other than they fill points in the basket. I'd look for this game to be a higher scoring game, but they just don't defend all that well. And they don't have the athletic power that Ohio State has. And yes, this is certainly a team that Iowa will not look past. I'm not looking past it. But as it relates to getting to a Sweet 16 mark, and you brought this up just a minute ago, you're going to have to play somebody sometime. And this is a tournament. It's not a bad path. I wouldn't say that it's the easiest path. I think that Alabama probably has the best path of the 2 seeds to get to a Final Four with or an Elite 8, then Ohio State next. But this is not a bad path.
The people are asking, and I have blown through a VCU like Arrested Development, like in that scene with Buster blowing through nap time. So people want to know. Here it is, Haley. VCU.
Yeah.
What do we know about VCU?
Yeah, they're not a good offensive team. They're a really good defensive team. They're 12th in the country in defensive efficiency, and their effective field goal percentage defense is 23rd. Their turnover percentage is 9th, so they turn teams over pretty well, but they also turn the ball over a lot. That's kind of about it. They're I wouldn't say they're punchless on offense, but they would rank as one of the worst Big Ten offenses. They're 211th in the country in 3-point percentage at 32.9%. They're just not going to turn you over. They're not a good offensive rebounding team. They don't really get to the line a lot, but they foul a lot. They send other teams to the line a lot. They're more of a plotting style of team that's really leans heavily on defense. So when they play against Oregon, it's the classic contrast of styles in a round one game. That's what this will be as a 7-10 matchup. It's going to be a bit of a contrast of styles. Now, VCU's best wins. First one of the season, they beat Utah State, who's ranked 40th, and I believe is in the tournament. Then they beat 38 ranked. And these rankings I'm spouting are based on Ken Pomeroy's rankings. Memphis did not make it into the tournament. And then after that, their best wins since then, they did split. They lost 2 of 3 to St. Bonaventure, but they did beat the Bonnies, who is one of my little Cinderella teams I like. I liked watching them today. I like their metrics. And they beat Dayton, who's 79th. They beat them a couple of times. They beat St. Louis, who's one of the first 4 alternates. And we'll talk about alternates here in a little bit because we're going to possibly need to with Kansas and Virginia, both in Iowa's region. Kansas is on Iowa's side of the 16 bracket. Virginia is on Gonzaga's side. So that's a little bit about VCU.
I like what Dan kind of breaks it down there. Poor man's Wisconsin, which not great.
Yeah,
not what you're shooting for if you're Iowa, but that's
a poor man. We're talking poor man's Wisconsin. Yeah, for sure.
Right. Okay, pull up the big bracket again.
Okay, we'll do. I like having that here and handy. And we are to the big bracket. There you go.
Okay, go to Iowa's region and
right here.
Okay. Yes, it's sweet. So they beat Oregon. Who's in front of them next?
Pull this up.
What do you see in front of them next?
So if Iowa beats Oregon, Iowa's going to play one of these 4 teams: USC, Wichita State Drake, Kansas, or Eastern Washington. Kansas obviously would be the highest seed, and I'll talk more about Kansas here in a second. But let's go take a quick Ken Pomeroy look at USC. USC is they finished second in the Pac-12. They were 15-5. They had the most wins of anyone in the Pac-12. Oregon was the regular season champ by virtue of winning percentage, the same as Michigan was in the Big Ten. They are 30th in the country in offensive efficiency, 19th in the country in defensive efficiency. And when you look at their offensive fingerprints, they're okay. They're not sensational. Defensively, very good effective field goal percentage, but they aren't lights out anywhere with the exception of 2-point field goal percentage defense. And looking down, Evan Mobley, that's the guy.
You talked about him earlier.
Yeah, I said they were kind of a one-man team, and it's Evan Mobley. Mobley is ranked 8th in the country in Ken Pomeroy's National Player of the Year rankings, and I want to just go to those real quick. This is Luka Garza is going to win this. I guess, what do you get when you win the Ken Pomeroy Player of the Year award? Do you get like a ream of statistical paper? I don't know. But here's
graphing paper. You get graphing paper.
There you go, graphing paper.
And an Excel password.
Right. Garza's 1. Drew Timme of Gonzaga is 2. Ayo Dosunmu's 3. Cameron Crutwood of Loyola of Chicago is 4. Hunter Dickinson from the Big Ten is 5. How about that? Freshman center is 5. Kofi Coburn from Illinois, 6. Trevion Williams from Purdue, 7th. And there's Evan Mobley from USC. And Jalen Suggs of Gonzaga is 10th. So game MVP leaders, this is the how many times a player wins the MVP of that team's games that season. Garza had 17 of those, which is tied with Mobley for the most in the country. So This guy is a really, really good player. And as you can see here, 7-footer, 215-pound freshman, probably going to be going to the NBA, probably going to be a lottery pick. So USC is definitely somebody there that could give Kansas fits if Kansas is not able to be at full strength. As I mentioned,
talk about that.
3 players not going with Kansas to Indianapolis. One of those players is a younger kid, is not used very much. Don't need to talk about him. Another player is not named at this juncture. Bill Self didn't name that player. But one of those players is David McCormick. He is their second leading scorer, 13.4 points per game, 6.1 rebounds per game. So if they are not at full strength, I don't know that they're going to get past USC. So that may make Iowa's path, I don't know, would it be easier? Would it be not easier? If let's say there's more COVID positive tests that pop up for KU. As I mentioned before, there are alternate teams waiting in the wings to take the place of any teams that have a COVID issue. Those teams in order are Louisville is one of them, Colorado State. Louisville's the first. Then Colorado State, then St. Louis, then Ole Miss. Those are your 4 COVID fill-in teams for the first round. I'm guessing if COVID happens after the first round, it's just going to be, and teams have to shut down, don't have enough players, it'll just be a pure forfeit. But so that, Mark, that 8-team quadrant here, that's what you're looking at to start it out.
Yep.
These 8 teams here. USC, Wichita State or Drake, Kansas, Eastern Washington, Oregon, VCU, Iowa, and Grand Canyon. I really feel comfortable, and Joe Wieskamp saying today, I think I read Chad Leistico on Twitter, Chad Leistico of the Des Moines Register, saying that Joe Wieskamp said he's fine and ready to go. If Iowa had to play tomorrow, he'd be ready to go. So Iowa also, Mark, gets that extra day of rest that we talked about
last night. Yeah.
Last night. Iowa gets that Saturday game. So that extra time to recover for Joe, extra oxygen for Luka, because this is all Luka all the time. The rest of the way, there is no tomorrow. That's another nice break for Iowa as I see it.
Okay, top of the bracket. I'm just going to assume Gonzaga. Does Gonzaga face a potential? I'm trying to come up with a wrestling reference, but just a throw to the mat, a 5-point move. Is there somebody with a puncher's chance?
Yeah, I like how you do that. A 5-point move. That's actually pretty cool. So Oklahoma or Missouri is probably it. I mean,
I love that matchup, by the way.
That old school.
Yes, exactly. I just chastise the committee for the NBC one. I like this one.
Right.
They're not in the same conference.
Right. They're not in the same conference. I think one of these teams probably is the best opportunity to beat the Zags, if there's going to be such a thing. And Missouri beat Illinois earlier this year, and Oklahoma has had some nice victories along the way as well. But Oklahoma is a team that has absolutely been reeling. However, they are 39th in the country in offensive efficiency. They're 36th in defensive efficiency, and they played in the second toughest conference in the country, the Big 12. And the Big 12 this year this Big 12 might be one of the 10 or 15 toughest conferences out of, I don't know, nearly 500 or so individual conference years since Ken Pomeroy's been. This was a really good Big 12 conference, and Oklahoma finished 9-8. I'm going to pull Oklahoma over here to the screen, see if you can see that. They finished 9-8. Again, as I mentioned, 36 in offense, 53rd in defense. They beat Kansas. They feasted on Iowa State 3 times, so maybe that inflates their win totals. They were swept by Oklahoma State. They did beat West Virginia at home. So, Mark, they are a team with fangs. They are a team with fangs, and you want to defang them. They could step up and bite you. I just don't know that they can. I think Gonzaga is too good. Again, Missouri, They're a veteran team. They beat Illinois in Columbia in the Show Me series, but that was way back an eternity ago in December when Illinois was playing nothing like what they were playing now. I don't see Creighton getting past UC Santa Barbara in the first round. I think UC Santa Barbara is the little, potentiality there to have the Cinderella stockings on. And then you get Virginia. Let's go take a look at Virginia, because if Gonzaga does play Virginia, and Virginia is probably more at risk of a COVID cancellation than even Kansas. They're not going to be getting into Indianapolis till maybe late Thursday night or Friday for Saturday games. They are struggling, but their
such
offense
a huge factor. It's such a huge factor.
Huge factor. They're 12th in offensive efficiency and 33rd in defensive efficiency. We all know that Bennett pack line defense is a weird thing to play against. If Virginia can get there and be healthy, that contrasting of styles is what could possibly take out Gonzaga. But it's hard for me to even pretend, Mark, that somebody's going to take out Gonzaga that early.
It looks like I was wrong with the 5-point move. Is it a 6-point move now? I got corrected by Jay.
Well, if you take somebody down, you probably
5.
can't get a 5. You either get 2 or 4 near fall. I don't know.
Yeah. Wrestling's changed. I'm kidding. It's not really changed. I just lost track. Okay. You looked over the big picture now. Mm-hmm. I want to extract some betting information. No, I'm just kidding about the betting. Well, actually, I don't have to say just kidding. Maybe some betting information, but Cinderellas and potential pissed off fan bases. Let's go over those. So start with the good. I don't know what character, by the way, pissed off fan base would be. A Disney character that would be. But Cinderella, let's start with Cinderellas.
Yeah, so, I mean, to me, a Cinderella makes it to the Sweet 16 that you don't expect, or maybe in some crazy years, the Elite Eight.
Gets that bump, gets that sort of
gets that first
bump, second weekend. They're doing the story the second weekend for the first day anyway.
There's very few George Masons in the NCAA tournament. The zaniness is round one. Very, it can sometimes extend to round 2, but usually the upset world happens there. I think that Wisconsin's in trouble against North Carolina. North Carolina is a team that really played well down the stretch this year. They got better. Iowa got them at the right time. I'm not saying Iowa couldn't beat them now, but Iowa made, 17 threes when those two teams played earlier this season. North Carolina is a gigantic team. They have 3 and 4 center/forward players. And of course, you've got Reavers and Potter for Wisconsin, but North Carolina, what they're going to throw at you is like double trouble, and they're really athletic. And their guard play has gotten better than what it was when Iowa played them because they've gotten more experience this year. I don't see Wisconsin getting out of the first round. And I think that North Carolina's length and athleticism makes an intriguing matchup against Baylor, a very angular, long, defensive and athletic team in their own right. I still would pick Baylor over North Carolina, but it wouldn't surprise me if North Carolina maybe gave Baylor a little more than they asked for. I think
it's interesting you bring up North Carolina just because, Iowa doesn't have it. Maybe Virginia, but Iowa doesn't really have anybody in their bracket that's blue blood who's trying to sort of win back that aura.
Right.
I think that's what North Carolina is to me, just a very dangerous blue blood who's kind of out of place.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and as recently as February 27th, North Carolina beat Florida State, who some people are writing into their Final Four as probably the most. If there's going to be a non-1 seed making it to the Final Four, I think Florida State's probably going to be the most popular pick, only because they're in Michigan's bracket, and Michigan doesn't have livers or not expected to have livers. They beat Duke twice, and Duke was the butt of a lot of punchlines this year, but Duke was still a top 33 Ken Pom team. And no Duke in the tournament. Wow. I didn't think I'd see that for a long time. I think it's possible. I think Utah State, I won't be surprised if they beat Texas Tech. Utah State, the number 8 team in the country in defensive efficiency. They're a little pedestrian on offense. Texas Tech played in a very tough league, but they're a meh team in a tough league. So I could see some Texas Tech fans potentially being upset. Also, Oregon State, not great. They won the Pac-12 tourney. But, they've got 3 straight victories against top 50 Ken Pomeroy teams on neutral floors, and they've won 6 of 7. But I wouldn't put my earnings on that. St. Bonaventure is a really good basketball team. And they have LSU in the 8-9 matchup. And then they potentially, if they win that, they get Michigan, who is a 1 seed, but 1 seed and seed only. Sino, is that what that is? CISO. I think that Michigan is going to struggle to find out who and what they are without Livers. Yes, they played well against a very good Ohio State team. I think did that game go to overtime too? Or I can't remember, but they beat Michigan in the Big Ten tournament. Ohio State did. So I think Michigan's going to really struggle.
You mentioned Loyola earlier, how they're kind of a wolf in sheep's clothing. Try being the Illinois fan. You won the Big Ten today. Here's your poop pie. You get a team that's probably could bust whoever they want there. Yeah, Illinois too, but that's a tricky little matchup. I think Dan makes a good point.
Yeah, it really is. It's a very tricky matchup. Look at these numbers, and those of you listening to this in podcast form, I'll tell them to you. Loyola Chicago is 49th in offensive efficiency, and they're the number 1 defensive efficiency team in the sport. And they were ranked a 9 seed. Are you bleeping me with that? That is just unbelievable how low Loyola was seeded. And yeah, if I'm an Illinois fan, that doesn't make me feel happy. I still and they're 9th in the country in offensive or effective field goal percentage. And pretty much all these 4 factors that go into the advanced analytics, they're really good at all 4 of them. So I think that Illinois is a team that's built to win rock fights, and I think that that's what it will be. I think Illinois can win track meets and they can win rock fights. And I don't know that I would say that about any other team in this tournament right now. But that is a laughingly, horribly low seed. And one thing here, Mark, before I forget, we both want to thank the sponsors of Hawkeye Podcast that we have on board right now. We have Barntown Brewing. We have Fong's Pizza. We have Heartland Flagpoles and Flags. Here is something to make your mouth water.
Craving the one and only Fong's Pizza? We thought so. Fong's Pizza in Cedar Rapids now delivers. Order direct delivery or curbside pickup from Fong's Pizza by calling 320-9992. All of your Fong's favorites and a Fong's spin on the classics, from their mega pepperoni to the Iowan and street taco. Delivery, takeout, carside to go. Call 320-9992. Fong's Pizza, Newbo District, downtown Cedar Rapids.
When I get up to Iowa, Mark, in April or May, let's get together in Cedar Rapids and let's wolf down a Fong's Pizza.
Oddly enough, Cedar Rapids is finally getting Barntown beer on a regular basis. Of course, I've moved. So I'm in Galena. I would have held up a can tonight, but I'm out.
Well, that's how good it is. You're already out.
I'm already out.
And what goes better with pizza than beer, right?
Iowans know a thing or two about a hard day's work. That's why we do things the right way at Barntown Brewing. Grain-to-glass beers brewed in-house. Scratch-made food, handcrafted with fresh, locally sourced ingredients. We work hard for the reward of watching our guests enjoy great food and beer. Barntown Brewing. West Des Moines, Hawkeyes.
What I was truly put on the planet to do, John, was make fun out of Bears fans. And when I met Pete Faber, the Barntown proprietor, he walked into the meeting. Need Pizza in Cedar Rapids, by the way. Another really good Cedar Rapids pizza place. He walked in and he's wearing a Bears hat. So I'm thinking this is going to work. So when we start doing content, it'll kind of be like on Iowa Pod, because Scott, he was that Bears guy.
Right.
You can't not make fun out of him. Don, do you have a pro football team?
The Chiefs.
Chiefs.
Yeah, the Chiefs. But it's not like passion. It's not like I love the Royals. I love the Royals. The Royals are passionate for me.
Okay. Well, I just want Pete and I will get started getting into it. I want to hear about how the brewery pushes through the hard stuff and what's the gold in the fermenter and all that kind of stuff. We'll get to that, but I wanted John to kind of turn over the host chair to me tonight because I wanted to get all that great information out of him. He is geeked out on basketball. Last night was the first time I'll cop to it. Last night was the first Pac-12 game I've watched this season.
Right.
Thank goodness I caught Bill Walton. My God, how does Dave Pasch? How does he not drown himself in liquor after that game? After doing a game with Bill, it's fun, but Bill, my goodness, he's all over the map.
You have to be really patient and really embrace that you're getting an opportunity to work with a legend, and
who's funny.
Who's funny, and that yes, you're going to get talked over. Yes, you're going to get interrupted. And that's really frustrating. Early on in my years with Jim Zabel, who absolutely is a legend, it frustrated me too because I was the nerdy guy that wanted to focus on an airtight broadcast that had all the seamless transitions and setups, kind of how goofy I was right there with my transitions to those ads. And then I'm like, wait a second. It is what it's going to be. My wife reminded me. She's like, hey, that's Jim Zabel. I'm like, you're right. Every second I chance it. So that's the same thing. You just at some point in time say, hey, let's just have fun. And that's what you have to do.
It was a blast to watch. Now I can say I've watched one Pac-12 game. So I wanted to get this stuff out with John. He also prepared a whole bunch of slides for this podcast. Did we leave anything on the table there? I didn't know if we made it all the way through.
So there are a few things. You had suggested before we did this, so I appreciate the preparation you put into it. We talked about the teams, the Cinderellas. What about the teams whose fans, might be mad,
angry fans? Okay,
angry fans,
teams that could disappoint. This is my favorite part.
I don't see Houston playing to their seed. Houston is a 2 seed. And I think that they got the best path of any 2 seed out there. In Houston's 8-team quad is West Virginia, Morehead State, San Diego State, Syracuse, Clemson, Rutgers, and Cleveland. I think that they'll get to the Elite 8, but I think if they match up against West Virginia, I think that they're in for a very rude awakening against West Virginia. And frankly, they could be in a huge awakening against a Rutgers or a Clemson, whoever wins that, just because I don't think that they're a tested team because they didn't play in the rigors of a Big Ten. They didn't play in the rigors of a Big 12 the way that West Virginia did and the way that Rutgers did. So I could see Houston bowing out early in this. And I don't think that Illinois is going to lose. But I think that the biggest heartbreak that potentially is out there this year is Michigan bowing out far earlier than a one-seed should.
That's tough with the injuries. I mean, that Livers, that's your heart and soul guy right there. So that's tough. I mean, they were going to be at 1 seed. He got hurt. They still went through with it. I think you kind of have to at that point. I mean, after the committee, you've already committed to that, and it's right. It does open up some intriguing. The ones never lost in the first round, or did it recently?
One time. It was Virginia, I think, a couple of years ago, but it's very recently.
I knew it happened very recently. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I think I actually have a slide for that. John's got a slide for that. Let me get my.
John's got a slide for that.
There you go. John's got a slide for that. So ones are 1 and 139 all time.
Okay.
2 seeds are 8 and 132 all time. 3 versus 14. I'm sorry. Start over. Ones are 139 and 1. 2s are 132 and 8. 3s are 119 and 21. And both Iowa and Iowa State are one of those 21 losses. 413s, 111 and 29. 512s, 90 and 50. 611 is 52. 88 and 52. 710s, 85 and 55, and 89s, 68 and 72. It's actually better to be, it's better to be a 9 than it is to be an 8, interestingly enough, in that number.
Mike here throws us 3s overseeded, 1, 2, 4 agreed. Yeah.
So Kansas is a 3, and I've got the Ken Palm pulled up for those of you that are watching this. Kansas is a 3 seed, but they're 22nd in Pomeroy. Another 3 seed is Arkansas. Arkansas is where the heck is Arkansas is an 18. So, if you're going to seed based on Pomeroy, it would basically be your top 12 team, seeds 9, 10, 11, and 12 would be a 3, and that would be Loyola Chicago, who's a 9, Wisconsin, who is a 9. Loyola's an 8, Wisconsin's a 9, Virginia, who's a 4, and Villanova, who's a 5. Yet you've got Kansas at 22nd, which should be more along the 6 seed line. You've got Arkansas at 18th, which should be along the 5 seed line. You've got Texas also, who's a 3 seed, but they're 26 in Pomeroy, and 20, that's 8, 9 seed territory. And then you've got West Virginia, who is at 27. Again, that's that. I think that person who said that, and sorry I don't see it anymore. Was it Mike? I'm not sure, but that's a great observation. Mike, the 3s relative to Pomeroy's analytics are very overseeded. Very overseeded. And that's a really good point. Ginger or Winnie, I don't want you jumping on my lap. Mark, dogs, whenever I become an empty nester, I'm going to be empty nest. It's not going to be anything around here except for me and my wife.
Go ahead. I'm trying to think what you threw me out with the dogs. I was going to ask you one or two more things, but any other I guess slides. Go with those. Talk us through your slides.
No, I don't. I don't have any more slides that I have not shown you to this point in time, but I do have more notes.
Okay,
Iowa, as we talked about, the 7th overall seed. Iowa is right now, as far as the betting lines are concerned, from what I've seen out there, Iowa has the best odds for a national championship outside of the 1 seeds at plus 1,800. That means if you bet 10, you'd win 180. Iowa is a 15 or 16 point favorite, depending on what house you look at relative to their game against Grand Canyon. The ESPN talking heads, Jay Billis, Dick Vitale, and Reese Davis all have Iowa making it to the Elite 8 and losing to Gonzaga. Seth Greenberg, the 4th of the quad talking heads, does not have Iowa making it to the Elite 8. We talked about how top heavy this tournament was for seeds. There's something from Tony Busan that you pulled up on the screen. ESPN reported Virginia saying they should be able to travel to Indy Friday or Saturday for a game due to COVID protocols. Well, they play on Saturday, so they better get there Friday, right?
So they're flying in the night of the game, which Hayden did to Tulsa, and that did not turn out well.
No, that did not turn out well, and I don't blame Hayden. I wouldn't want to stay in Tulsa for any longer than you have to either. Someone who's lived in that area for 7 or 8 years.
I didn't say that.
No, I know. I did. I know.
Tulsa people.
I'm fine to wear it. Oregon is the highest seeded, the highest 7 seed in this tournament. I think if Michigan had livers, they would probably have the most favorable path to get to a Final Four, and that's why I think Florida State's going to be a really chic pick to be that uninvited team that gets to the Final Four outside of the chalk. And I think, Mark, those are all the things that I had written down. And if we want to, you've been pulling some things up. If anybody else has anything they want to comment or say right now, or any other questions, we can take that. Or we can wrap it up now. Dan McCall has a really interesting point here. Mark. Are you wearing a bearskin coat?
No, this is just a big fuzzy fleece. I don't think I've worn this.
A BFF, big fuzzy fleece.
I don't think I've worn this since wearing it to cover the Pinstripe Bowl, and I needed every inch of this damn thing. That sucked. That was really cold. Open air press box, below freezing. I wore it to a press conference with the Yankees brass, and they weren't actually taking serious questions from reporters, and somebody should have told me that. So that's my memory with this little thing here. Yes.
I just want to point out Tony's saying they are flying in. This is Virginia again, flying in the day before Saturday game. Bus in, by the way, as in bus. The bus driver retired. Okay, maybe I took the wrong question there. So Iowa's seed is a 2. It ties for the highest seed that Iowa's had in program history.
Since 87.
Since 87.
Right.
And also the highest. They've been a 3 seed, I think, at least on 2 other occasions,
Right.
like 82, 81, and they were bounced out in the second round. Or they had a very early exit. They didn't make it to the Sweet 16. And, of course, we all remember Iowa Northwestern State in 2006. So we are in some very heady territory here with Iowa. And I'm really glad that there is that extra day for Iowa to get some rest. But, man, this tournament's going to, I think, help us all, Mark, a little bit of tonic for our lives of just feeling something akin to normal, because this weekend hearing some fans in the stands at these tournaments, some tournaments there were more than others. The SEC championship game that I watched most of that with Alabama and LSU, oh my gosh, that sounded like it was half capacity. And man, it just felt right. It felt normal.
I'm with you. And I know I'm not supposed to say nice things about Illinois basketball, but when Georgie was doing his thing and he actually looked up to the stands and kind of got it, did the raise the roof or kind of hear the noise, I got a kick out of that, because that's the first time we've seen an athlete do that to a crowd in a year. So
exactly.
I loved it. Let's do this. Jay is throwing us a challenge, and I'm totally flat-footed in wrestling right now. We could probably do like 15 minutes later this week, but I'd like to have somebody on if we could. But how many champions next week, and how big a gap from Iowa to number 2? Let's just take a shot.
So,
I'll do this. This is wrestling.
Okay.
This is wrestling.
Oh, wrestling. Yes. Okay, gotcha.
Mark, how many champions next weekend, and how big a gap from Iowa and the number 2 team? I'm going to put the over-under on Iowa champs at 3.
I'll take the under.
Ooh.
But I think they'll get 2. I think they've got 1 in the bag in Spencer Lee. I think that, I sure hope Marinelli gets it. I would love to see him get it.
He's one I want to see, and he's one I have on the list.
Yeah, and Kemmer, Grandpa.
That's the other one. I want him to win. That's why I'm putting it at 3.
Yeah, I would really love that as well. And, the 133 bracket is so freaking loaded, and I don't know if
it's hot goalie time, man.
Is it Roman Bravo Young of Penn State? I don't think that DeSanto has an answer for that. He's not incapable of it, because he can pull out the fireworks too. But RBY just was on a different level, and that guy's going to be a big pain for a long time. And of course, we forgot. I didn't look at the chat, so I'm not cheating. Ironman at 141. I think Ironman gets it, and I think that Lee gets it, and I think Kemmerer may fall short. So I would take the under, but I'm hoping it's 4. And I think Iowa probably wins this one by 15 or 20 points. I
was going to say double digits, maybe 9 at the lowest, but I think Iowa, get the title it didn't get last year, which I totally understand. If you guys, there's a lot of FOMO over that. Here's a goofy question from Matt. Have either of you ever eaten antelope? No. I imagine it's not a lot of fat, and you better cook it pretty fat, or you better not leave it on too long.
Right.
I've never eaten it though.
Yes, I haven't either. I'm not a very adventurous eater. Feltz, if this is Feltz from Twitter, one of my favorite basketball follows, says, "How are you going to give your projections on how far Iowa is going to go?" So, as any of you who've been following me through the years know, I am a single bracket of integrity person. I don't fill out multiple brackets for multiple bracket challenges I'm in, and we'll tweet out the link again to the bracket the bracket league I just made for Hawkeye Podcast. I only fill out one bracket, and if I enter multiple contests, it's the same bracket. I don't do multiples. I haven't hit the submit button yet on my ESPN bracket. I've kind of paused it, and I've got Iowa making it to the Elite Eight. I think that they're going to do that. I think if Iowa gets to the Sweet 16, I will personally feel satisfied on the season. I will feel satisfied. That Sweet 16 monkey off their back, I will feel elated if they get to the Elite Eight. And if they get to the Elite Eight, I'm fully expecting that they would have a matchup with Gonzaga. And how does Iowa beat Gonzaga if they get that far? Well, They lost the first matchup 99-88. And in that game, Iowa was just 4 of 22 from 3. It was their second worst three-point shooting game of the season, with the worst being their 2 of 20 against Wisconsin the other day, where they only scored 62 points and won. I was probably going to need to hit about 11 of 22 to beat Gonzaga. Suggs was 7 of 10 from 3 that day. Doubt he does that again. Jack Nunge scored 10 points in that game and had 8 rebounds and played 23 minutes. And Jack's not walking through that door. Garza had 30 and 10. Wieskamp had 20 and 9. But Bohannon only had 2. So can Iowa beat Gonzaga? I wouldn't say it's an Al Michaels, do you believe in miracles level upset if they did. But if they're going to beat Gonzaga, they're going to have to make double-digit threes and put a little – that man-to-man defense that they've gotten really good at as of late is going to have to really show up. I think it's a really tall order. It's not impossible, but Bohannon's going to have to really be a factor in that game, or anybody on Iowa to make more threes than what they did the first time.
You finally got to what I was going to say. Bohannon's going to have to say flame on. He's going to have to be the Human Torch. And I think he can. He's shown this in spurts. I want to see Iowa make the Final Four. I can't predict them past Gonzaga, but I think John gave a great explanation on the thing I think has to happen, and to me, that makes Bohannon. I'm just going to say this, John. His biorhythms have to be there. Biorhythms is like a Bill Spaceman Lee reference from the 70s sports when they first decided athletes had mental capacity. So,
yeah.
Get J-Bo's biorhythms correct, and maybe Final Four.
Yeah.
Imagine that, too. I mean, imagine that. In the COVID year, Final Four, Hawkeye fans, well, hopefully most of from my Twitter line, most of you guys in Iowa have your COVID shots, your COVID vaccination. So get out there and party all the time.
Yeah. Mark, you're not going to like me saying this because you have been and are a journalist. I'm not. I'm just a commenter. I want Iowa to win every game. I've never shied from saying that, but I would like to believe in the last, half of the career that I've had doing whatever it is that I do, I've been calling balls and strikes and been making an effort to be objective. And it's not like fabricated. It's not hard. I want Iowa to do well, but if they're not, I'm going to criticize it. I will tell you this, and if they make the Final Four, I will be on my couch shedding tears because it's that little nostalgic boy that grew up watching sports. And Iowa basketball to me was bigger than anything. When Iowa would play the Russians in the preseason games, I thought that was like Final Four. I still have scrapbooks at my parents' house that my mom's kept of me cutting out like preview articles written in the newspaper about the Russians and old bald Kevin Boyle there on the picture. That would be for me. That would be about as big as it gets for me. Now, if they don't make it, we'll be critical. I'll call balls and strikes. And I know that you will, Mark, as well. But I'm just being honest. If they made it to the Final Four, that's mountaintop for me.
So you're that year Iowa basketball, when you kind of bonded with the team, were you in West Branch?
In West Branch.
And you were watching it on Raycom Channel 2?
Raycom Channel 2, KGAN.
Bob Hogue, Oh My,
Bob Hogue, yeah, absolutely.
Mac McCausland, Chips and Salsa.
Yeah, probably Sharm Sherman and Bob Hogue.
I know I'd be missing one. That, to me, makes Iowa basketball fandom there is a deep bond. I mean, we talked. Phelps was on earlier. You could see he's from Eastern Iowa. The people who could get those games bonded with those teams in a deep, deep way. And in Iowa, when it was cold as hell, and you didn't want to go outside unless you had a kid who was actually, at a wrestling meet or a high school basketball game.
Right.
You watched Iowa basketball. You watched the hell out of it, and you bonded with it. I think. People like maybe 40 to 50 years old, or maybe even 55 or older, you remember that. And there's a lot of great things about the Big Ten Network, mainly that it puts $50 million plus in each university's sports.
There's that, yeah.
But the Big Ten Network, it does take the game to a bigger audience.
Right.
But if you ask your grandma to dial up BTN on the old internet, probably is not happening. And I believe Iowa's lost a little bit of that bond because it's not the easiest thing to get to for everyone in Iowa in the winter. I mean, there are people who just don't have the internet or just don't want to go to the internet. And then, granted, some of the games are Iowa against Marathon Oil, but just not Marathon Oil, someone even worse.
Right.
I do think that bond is a little bit, but the people who carry that bond, my mom and dad included, my dad's passed, but my mom, that rubbed off on me. So absolutely, I'm speaking from experience here. Amana Hawkeye Classic, Great Alaska Shootout, all those teams. I think a lot of people would lose it.
Yeah.
I remember where I was for the last time Iowa made it to the Final Four. It was right around, I think we were celebrating my 13th birthday. And we went out to eat at the big place in Dubuque. Well, actually, not in Dubuque. It's Rickardsville, I think.
Sizzler?
Lizers.
Okay.
Lizers. It was a supper club. It was a good place. My dad had me and my brother were at the bar. And my dad had, we had 7-Up with grenadine in it or whatever, or no alcohol, whatever made it red. Cherry juice. I don't know, but we thought we were big shots. And I'm up there in a leisure suit. And my brother is, I think he has a leisure suit too, had a leisure suit on too. Thought we were big shots. I mean, my dad took us up to the bar. We watched the last, I think, second half of the Georgetown game on TV at the Lizer Supper Club. So people remember that. People remember where they were the last time Iowa made a Final Four, and I think that's I think Iowa basketball fan does have a unique bond. I really do.
Yeah, it does, and that's why when they brought when they hired Fran after Todd and the style of play that he was going to employ, I just have always felt it to be a little bit of a birthright. So very good stuff.
Also, my dad went to University of Wisconsin-Platteville with Tom Davis.
Really? With Tom Davis?
Same era. My dad actually went 4 years there and decided not to graduate for some reason. But anyway. He was crazy. I think he had me probably, but anyway.
Things like that.
Athletes in action. There's a lot of good stuff here. So that's about it. I don't have anything else.
Yep.
I'm sorry this was a clunky host hour, but I wanted John to geek out because I think he embodies more. His enthusiasm there. People. I mean, we didn't get to see where Iowa landed last year.
Right.
And basketball, and it's mostly kind of the same team. I don't know if it's better or worse, but now you're going to get to see that this team land and be measured the way that it needs to be measured. I mean, it may or may not make the Sweet 16. It may or may not make the Elite Eight, but there's so often we don't get this opportunity very often here in Eastern Iowa. This is a big deal.
Really big deal. And one way or another, there'll be some closure. Last year, we didn't have that opportunity. And folks, I hope we are embarking on a couple of weeks of a lot of fun. But either way, Marc and I will be back later this week. We'll be talking more about it. We thank you for your involvement. And if you enjoy the things that we're doing, could you tell your Hawkeye buddies? So many of you have left reviews in the podcast. The podcast downloads have exceeded even my wild expectations. The goals that I had set for us, you guys have blown through. I've had my web host reach out to me 3 different occasions, bumping up the bandwidth because y'all are blowing through it. And that's fantastic. So tell your friends about Hawkeye Podcast. Tell your friends about these live shows, about how we want you guys to be a part of it. We'd really appreciate you doing that. We'd really appreciate you, patronizing the sponsors who are keeping the lights on here. That's Barntown Brewing. That is Fong's Pizza, and also Heartland Flag Poles and Flags. That's heartlandflags.com. And Mike Baker says, "Go Hawks." I think that's a good way to end this. For Marc, I'm John.